Hello, welcome to AleaSoft webinar. My name is Alejandro Delgado, Technical Director of AleaSoft and Associate Partner of Alea Green, and thank you for joining us today to the webinar with the topic Prospect for the European Energy Markets in the Second Half of 2024, Wholesale Market Design and PPA. Our first speaker today will be Oriol Saltó, Data Analysis and Modeling Director of AleaSoft and Associate Partner of Alea Green, that will discuss about the evolution of the European energy markets and the prospects for the second half of the year. Then, we have several guest speakers from Engie Spain that have joined us again after 1 year from our last webinar together, and that will talk about the growth opportunities in the renewable sector, the regulatory and design challenges of the wholesale market, and the current affairs of the PPA market in Spain. Unfortunately, Ignacio Sáenz will not be able to join today, so the speakers from Engie will be Rodolfo Baldrich, Senior Originator Gas and Power, Julio Nieto, Head of Regulation Affairs, and Daniel Fernandez, Strategy, Regulatory Affairs, and Communications Director. If you have any questions at any time during the webinar, please use the Q&A menu, and we will answer them after the presentations. And now, I hope you enjoyed the webinar. Oriol, please share your slides.
Thank you, Alejandro. Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here again. Happy again to share a webinar with Engie. I always enjoy them hearing them talking about PPAs, about the energy market. So, okay, let's go ahead. I'll do as Alejandro mentioned. I'll cover the first part, talking about the energy markets in the last weeks. We will be comparing with what we saw in our last webinar five weeks ago. And as always, I start with a few words about AleaSoft and the services that we provide. In case you don't know us, in AleaSoft, we provide forecasting services and consultancy services for all for energy markets at the global level. We cover all the energy markets in Europe, some energy markets also in the Middle East, and some in South America and North America. And we have data ready available to make forecasting and modeling basically any market at the global level. The forecasting methodology that we use is for our own methodology developed by AleaSoft specifically for forecasting in the energy sector. The three main points that we always like to stress about our methodology is that it is a completely scientifically based methodology. We use a combination of different statistical techniques all together with artificial intelligence. This gives our models stability and accuracy. The stability of our forecast over time is something that our clients appreciate a lot. And well, this the methodology that we have been using now for 25 years. This year we celebrate the 25th anniversary of the company. We started in the Iberian electricity market, and right now we are covering most of the, as you have seen, a lot of energy markets at the global level. We not only provide forecasting services, we do and we provide a lot of services around the energy markets and the energy systems. We divided all our services in 6 different divisions in order to make a little bit easier to explain what we do. We have Alea Green, where we make long-term forecasting with hourly price forecast up to 30 years or 3 decades ahead. Alea Blue, where we provide short and mid-term forecasting. This means prices, demand, renewable energy production at the short term, so hours ahead or the day ahead, up to 2-3 years ahead. We have Alea Hub. It's a marketplace for PPAs and also for assets and renewable projects. Alea Storage, where we provide services for managing, optimizing, designing energy storage systems. So basically trying to estimate future revenues or let's say the real time managing of the energy storage facility. Alea White, it's our division focused on information. We have an online database with data from energy markets and energy systems. We also publish regularly news and reports in our website. We also make these webinars, and then we have Alea Consulting, where we offer any consulting services related with the energy markets. We've made reports about how prices of CO2 impact the prices in the electricity markets. We've made law reports also. So basically anything else related with the energy market. This wide range of services means that we basically cover the needs of all the players in the energy systems and energy markets. We have clients on the side of the producing energy, consuming energy, investing in energy, controlling energy, TCOs, etc. So let's start with the review of the energy markets. We always start with the Brent oil, and if you remember, in our last meeting, we just saw how prices that have previously reached the level of $90 were back to the level between 80 and 85. The most important event that we have during these 5 weeks was the OPEC Plus meeting that took place 1st of June, if I'm not mistaken, where basically they decided to extend the cuts in production that they had in place since 2022 and 2023, and they added a little bit more. So basically it's extending at least for another 3 months the cuts that were already in place. The reaction of the market was basically the contrary. What would you expect with the reduction of the supply? That was that the prices really dropped quite a lot. Now they are back more or less at around the previous levels. So basically, they decided to extend the cut in production. This may lead, it's not really clear, but this may lead to a tighter situation of supply during the summer, during the third quarter of the year, although it's not clear how much it can impact on the prices. So maybe prices can go up a little bit more during the next quarter. Really no analysts see the prices reaching above the $90 level. But anyway, we might expect a little bit more tighter situation during the summer. Also, they decided that the production cuts that they have in place will be progressively reduced until the end of 2025. And well, that's from the side of the production. From the side of the demand, it's when we always mention that there's a very different view on the evolution of the oil demand. Basically, I found this graph very illustrative. You can see the expectations on the demand growth for 2024 from the International Energy Agency and from the Energy Information Administration in the United States. And you basically see how this expected growth in the demand basically has been declining over since the beginning of the year, while expectations from OPEC being basically they haven't changed, and and they are even much higher, basically twice as the other agencies. So basically, if the current plans to phase out productions cut by the end of 2025 would mean that the cuts that are in place are around 2.5 million barrels per day. So if all this new supply is provided until 2025, basically with these expectations of increase in the demand for 2024 and for 2025 that are a little bit higher, but not much more than that, basically that would mean a huge oversupply by 2025. So basically what they also said is that this is the plans that they are having now, but probably, but they will be pending and looking at the data, so basically they can change their mind along the way. So probably it's difficult to see all these production cuts released by 2025. This is the same information from another view. So this is the increase in the supply due to phasing out the cuts until 2025. And these are the expectation of the growth in the demand from the International Energy Agency and from the same OPEC. And basically, you see, if you take into account what the increase in the demand is expected by the International Energy Agency, you see that the new supply that would be in place would be much, much higher. So we would end up with a highly oversupplied market. That it's something that it's not expected to happen. So probably these plans to phase out all the cuts will be reviewed before reaching 2025, and they will probably be reviewed on the lower side. So for gas, basically prices are keep growing at a quite steady trend. Now they are around the 45 sorry, the 35 euros megawatt hour level. What we have seen this last week is basically we are seeing a very nervous market. As we will see in a couple of slides, the levels of the stored gas are already growing as expected. They have healthy levels of stored gas, but even in these situations, prices keep growing, and they are basically growing because there is a lot of uncertainty on the supply side. So during this couple of last weeks, we saw there was an event in the supply coming from Norway. There was an outage in one of the pipelines, and the supply was reduced. The outage lasted just 1 or 2 days. It was something very, very temporary, but that introduced a lot of volatility within during a couple of days. There were increases that more than 10% in prices, and this is basically reflecting that the market is quite nervous, mainly on the supply. Now, once Russia is no longer the main supplier, now Norway is the main supplier of gas to Europe. So obviously, any outage coming from Norway is putting pressure on the market. And then the other main uncertainty, comes comes from 2025, the supply in 2025. So in 2025, the last agreement between Russia and Ukraine for gas coming from Russia is ending. It's the last agreement ends by the end of 2024, and it's difficult to see if it will be renewed, if it will be extended, given the current geopolitical situation. The gas that comes from Ukraine, it's only 5%, but it's quite an important fraction. So a lot of uncertainty. We will see how the gas futures have been increasing a lot, and that's what it's putting pressure on the market, and that's why we are seeing prices steadily growing. As I mentioned, the storage levels are not at historical levels. They are at the same level that they were last year, but this time 72%. Very healthy situation. So it looks like there's going to be no problem to reach having full storage just before the beginning of the winter, and unless the winter it's really, really cold or really, really extreme, it looks like it's the supply situation during the winter. Even if we have some uncertainties right now from the pipelines, it's going to be an easy situation, let's say, during the winter. CO2 emission allowances, we are still in this upwards trend that we are seeing since mid-February. Basically, we are seeing right now we are quite below this upwards channel. It's difficult to say that we are completely breaking this upwards trend. Probably prices will keep going up in the coming weeks. Basically, the most interesting feature right now is that historically the CO2 prices have been very tight and very correlated to gas prices. But that's something that this correlation clearly disappeared during this price crisis of 2022 and 2023. And here I plotted, and we can see both the price of the CO2 and the price of the TTF gas. And basically see during 2023, there is basically no correlation between the two prices. But since October, November 2023, both prices started behaving very quite the same. And if we make the correlation between these two prices, TTF price on the x-axis and CO2 prices in the y-axis, the darker points are the prices during 2023, where you basically see no correlations, while in 2024 the correlation is pretty high. This has been historically both prices have been very correlated, and it's something that we kind of recovered, probably meaning that this episode of very volatile CO2 prices and very high CO2 prices is over. We can try to say that. So probably it's another sign that we have already mentioned in previous webinars that we are back to the expected long-term trend of the CO2 prices. The long-term trend of CO2 prices are to keep growing, so they become useful for being an incentive to be an incentive to switch from emission technologies to more cleaner technologies. And this is something that you get if you kept reducing the supply of allowances and keep the prices increasing. And it looks that we may be back to this long-term trend that we saw in the past, but it was kind of disappeared during this energy prices crisis. Okay, now let's see the electricity markets, and I always take this opportunity to show you our online database. It's a service that we provide to our clients, and here you can see some of the most important electricity markets in Europe. It's a monthly average, and the last full month of data that we have is May. And in May, we basically see, comparing to the previous month, that was April. So the market that has the greatest increase was Spain, with 122% increase month on month. Then UK market also increased by 35%, Belgium by 13%, and then the rest of the markets were less than 10%. The only market where prices decreased was France, with -4%. And if we now go back to the daily averages, those are the daily averages since April, since the beginning of April. You can see how French prices, that are the ones in orange, yellow, orange, are right now the lowest prices, while during this spring, Spanish prices, that are the ones in red, well, Spain and Portugal both are the same. In red, during the spring, they have been the lowest prices. Now France is the one that took that position with the lowest prices. Then, if you remember in our last webinar, we saw a little bit what was the situation in the prices in Spain, because during the spring we were having very low prices, a lot of hours with prices of €0 megawatt hour, and for the first time in the history we had negative prices. The largest that we have was -1 or -1 and something, but they were negative prices. That there was something that we never had in the past. So when we were mentioning that going into the summer, the situation was going to improve because we had more demand, less wind, probably less hydro, and that's what we are seeing right now. So we see how during March, April, and most of May, so the situation was the one that we mentioned. So very low prices or very low prices during solar hours. Now the situation is improving. So now in June, we are seeing baseload prices close to €200 megawatt hour, prices during solar hours above €50 megawatt hours some days. During the weekends, so we are still seeing low prices, but in general the situation has improved quite a lot. And basically this is because, as we mentioned, demand is increasing. So this is the daily average for demand in blue. So demand is increasing. In red, we have wind production that has also been decreasing. In green, we have the hydro production that has also been decreasing. And in orange or yellow, we have solar production that has been increasing. So basically, and the combination of more demand, less wind, less hydro, even though we have more solar, it's basically giving us more or higher prices, and the situation is improving for the producers. Why the demand is increasing? Well, basically because the temperatures are increasing, so they are increasing seasonally as expected, and we reach the point where higher temperatures are inducing or are producing higher demands. And just to show you another thing that we are going to see now when we will be looking at the forward curves, are the futures prices. So these are the prices for the electricity futures for Spain for 2025, and you can see how since this is since January, so the lowest prices were just by the end of February, and they have been increasing a lot since then. Right now they reach close to 75. They are now around €70 megawatt hour. So there's been a huge increase of the futures for electricity futures for next year. And this is, as we will see, very correlated with the increase of gas futures for 2025. Those are gas futures for 2025, also since January, and you basically see that they are following basically the same path. So as we will see, electricity futures are increasing, and this is basically due to the increase in the gas futures. So as I said, let's go and see the forward curves. This is the forward curve for the Brent oil. We are comparing it with the forward curve that we saw 5 weeks ago in our last webinar. As the spot prices have been basically kept more or less at the same level, we see basically no changes in the forward curve. The largest changes, if I remember well, is around 1%, 1.5%, but basically no changes in the forward curve. On the other hand, on the forward curve for the TTF gas, we see quite large changes. So the curve, so futures increase 8.3% for the remaining of 2024. That's a lot. 3% increase in 2025. And then where we see the largest increases are just after 2025. So 7% for 2026, 5.5% 2027, more than 3% for 2028. And basically this is kind of related with the uncertainty that we mentioned about the supply after 2025 or after 2024 and 2025, etc. So basically, the uncertainty is putting pressure on the prices, and obviously the futures are reflecting these fears, this uncertainty, and are putting pressure on the prices at the mid and the long term. And this is something that, as we are going to see, have an impact on the futures for electricity. CO2 prices, a forward curve, basically no change, less than 1% change in any point of the curve. Basically, as we saw, we are in an upward trend, but right now prices decreased a little bit with respect to that trend, so very less. So basically, they were kept more or less at the same levels that we had for 4 weeks ago. So basically, the forward curve it's already where it was. Now, the forward curve for electricity prices, as I mentioned, basically we saw increases along the curve. 6%, the largest increase is in Italy, 6%, 3% on average, the increase in Spain. Germany and France were kept more or less the same that they were 5 weeks ago. Just the Cal 25 for France decreased significantly. This is basically because, as I mentioned, right now France is having the lowest prices in Europe. So basically, this is reflecting on the futures for next month. And just also as a kind of a summary of what we saw, what are the key elements that now we are taking into account when forecasting the prices for the next month, for the second half of 2024. So basically, OPEC Plus decided to extend the production cuts during the third quarter of 2024, meaning that the situation during the summer can be a little bit tighter than before we expected. This could put some pressure onto the prices, some upwards pressure, but it's difficult. I mean, everybody sees that it's difficult to see that this pressure can put prices beyond the $90 per barrel. Because even if the production from OPEC is kept at the present levels, we have the rest of the production of the producers' countries mainly come from America, and their production is expected to increase. So basically, we still see a very balanced market during the summer. Natural gas prices keep increasing. And the futures basically show the uncertainty on the supply beyond 2025, 2026. CO2 allowances are on the same path, and now very correlated with the gas prices as they used to be before the energy prices crisis. And we saw how the electricity prices in the Iberian market are recovering after the very low prices that they had during spring, and now France is the market that is having the lowest prices. Electricity futures increasing following the increase in the futures of natural gas, and at the long term, basically the situation is kept stable there. At the long term, we will have a lot of more renewable energy, a lot of more demand coming from the electrification of all the sectors, coming from the production of green hydrogen. We are also going to have a lot of energy storage, and how these renewable energies, green hydrogen production, and energy storage, how all this is going to be, how it is going to work all together, how the hybrid installations are going to play with all these elements in order to get the market balanced. And basically, that's all that I wanted to show. Just give me the opportunity to invite you to our next webinar. It's going to be the webinar number 46. It's going to take place July the 11th. And we will be talking about, as always, reviewing the energy markets, talking about all the services that I showed you, our 6 divisions that we have, and we will talk in detail about the services that we provide in each division. We're talking about PPAs, price cannibalization, and if you have the chance in the Spanish version of the webinar that we are going to do a couple of hours afterwards, if you have the chance, there we will have a roundtable, a very interesting roundtable where we will be talking about PPAs cannibalization, PPAs from the point of view of the consumers. We will have the director of the Association of Large Consumers in Spain. We will also have finance, the side from the financing, the side from the insurance. So it's going to be very interesting. So if you have the chance, you can also join the webinar in Spanish. And that's it. Thank you, Alejandro.
Thank you very much, Uriol. Very interesting as usual. And thank you, Rodolfo, Julio, and Daniel for joining us again. And Rodolfo, when you're ready, you can share your slides.
Hi, everyone. Let me just share my slides over here. Here we go. I guess you can see my screen, right?
Yes, now we can see in
perfect.
full screen.
Great. Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for having us. So I'm Rodolfo Baldrich. Everyone calls me Rudy, so you can perfectly call me Rudy. I'm going to be pitching in for Ignacio, who could not make it this morning, and briefly tell you the agenda of what we're going to be speaking about. So I'll be speaking about PPA's market and an overview of what the market is currently doing right now. Then Julio will be talking about a regulatory forecast, and Daniel on the political scenario and our strategy for Engie in Spain today and so for the future. So PPAs currently, we're seeing that the market is quite uncertain. I'd say uncertain is the main word right now, because there's so many uncertainties on million type of different things. And here we like to talk about 3 different things. So this triangle that we have here is basically market risk, counterparty risk, and cash risk. So basically a PPA, what we're trying to do here is mitigate risks as much as possible. There's a gazillion type of risks that we can find in PPAs, but we have to try and get away from speculation. And as Warren Buffett says here, this quote from him is that the first rule is not to lose, and the second rule is don't forget the first rule. So basically, what we're trying to do is mitigate risk as much as possible. And as you can clearly see on the photo that we have on the top left, although it's in Spanish, it clearly shows that we have to let people get out before you get in, and that means that basically we need to differentiate between risk and speculating. So risk and speculating, risk management basically is what we have to try and mitigate those risks, and we have to try and stay away as much as we can from speculating. And I always say this, so when someone tries to hedge something today, instead of doing it tomorrow or in 2 days' time, they're speculating. Basically because they think that the market will be moving in some way or another, and that we find it a lot on derivatives in the short term. So if someone's trying to hedge a day ahead, a weekend ahead, or a month, a quarter, call ahead, we usually see that a lot of these counterparties, they're trying to see if they can beat the market. Here we need to forget about beating the market. And again, quoting Warren Buffett, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. So investing is not being the smartest guy in the room. It doesn't mean trying to beat everyone else. It's basically trying to meet your standards, meet your budgets, and forget about everything else. So as I was saying, so we have this magic triangle here of those risk transfers, and we have so market risk, counterparty risk, and cash risk. And then we'll talk about a couple of more risks, because we have, as I was saying, we have quite a number of risks in PPAs. And basically it's, so what do we do with an unhedged position versus a hedged position? So if we unhedged position, we do nothing. We leave everything merchant on a developer side. So on the upstream side, we're going to see that that if the market starts coming down, and Oriol was perfectly stating this a couple of minutes ago, is that we've seen negative prices for the first time in history in Spain. So being merchant on those negative prices is huge risk, and it's something that we can mitigate. And we can mitigate so with PPAs, but we can also mitigate it with short-term hedging. But here we'll concentrate today on the PPAs. So we need to try and focus on, okay, this number is good for me. It on the developer side, it manages my expectations, my IRR, my investors are happy with this. Go for it. Hedge X percentage. So we always say that it's extremely dangerous to be hedged 100%, and as well as it is to not be hedged at all. So we need to find some sort of percentage where we feel comfortable, and this usually goes from a 25 to 75%, and on PPAs when we're talking about a 10-year position, I'd probably be going more in the 75%, and then leave some of the rest of the risk merchant. And merchant, by merchant, I mean that we have to manage those risks. So merchant is that you're going to the market, and if so currently these last few days, we've seen prices in certain hours of the day going above 100 again. But we've also seen those negative prices 2-3 months ago. And we have to try and manage those risks on actively. We need to be on top of things and hedge those risks as much as we can. Then we have the counterparty risk. So it's not the same doing an offtake with a investment grade counterparty than a young bond counterparty. So we as Engie, we are very proud to be an investment grade counterparty, and being investment grade means that banks trust us. So when you have a bank financing a project, you want to have someone that is going to be able to pay the cash for the PPA in the future, so that cash position is able to repay the debt in time. And banks say, okay, I will give you this money. How many megs do you want to install? These amount of megs. This is the amount of money I will lend you. And the amount of money tends to be between 60 and 70%. And they'll say, okay, but I'll only lend you this money if you go with this sort of counterparty. And we leverage on that, and we take advantage of that position. And that's why we would offtake a project. So we have our internal renewable global business unit developing projects all over the world, and in Spain as well, of course, in Portugal. So we do the offtake from the energy of their project, but we also do it with third parties. So a third party, a developer, a fund, it can be a pension fund, a private equity, a hedge fund. We see loads of types of different investors. We see banks, funds as well. And they come up to us and say, hey, we want to do a PPA with you guys, and we want to do it with this tenor. And then we just give them a price. They feel comfortable with that. They go back to the bank who's financing the project and say, good, I like this counterparty. This has a very, very low counterparty risk, and it helps out the PPA going forward. Then we have different sort of methodologies of how to mitigate credit risk. For example, with the CSA. I don't know if you're aware of CSA, but basically it's a collateral support agreement by which you need to review the mark-to-market of certain positions on a daily, weekly, or monthly, or even annual basis. Depends on the agreement that you have, and you might have to collateralize part of that risk with cash. And so it's another way to mitigate those risks, and it works really well, especially with bigger counterparties and bigger names, because doing the mark-to-market of certain position is not easy. And then we also have the possibility of hedging on organized markets, but we'll see now in a second with clearing houses like we have on MEEP, or we have EX or MEF or different clearing houses. So that's specific to power, but there's many more on other commodities. And we'll go to the next slide. So here we have OMIP. So OMIP, This is a reference from a couple of days ago. So the PPA 2534 has not moved. It's still around 55.25. And this is on a base load mid value. Okay, so this is not where the market is going to be transacting. So this is a reference to the market. We know that this is a mid value and we have a bid offer spread. I'm sure you're all pretty well aware of what a bid offer spread is, but basically is that there's a leeway between, or a bid offer spread between that 55.25, that's a price that someone is willing to sell and the price that someone is willing to buy. So the seller would want to be selling at a price above 55.25, but the buyer will be probably at a price lower than 55.25. And that's where we need to find an angle, and that's where we play a key role in the industry, at least in Spain, and of course in the rest of the world. I can speak for Spain because it's basically where we are, Spain and Portugal, where we are mainly focused. So Engie, we have a very decentralized system by which in each geography that the company has business platforms. We're very independent in the way that we do and we manage risk. So in Spain, it's different than from Germany or France or UK or Australia or the US. So for example, in Germany, and I guess some of you are German over here, we see that there's a tendency and there's a lot of counterparties trading short-term PPAs, so 1 to 3 years. But here we see that counterparties want to trade 10 years, and managing that and angling that and axing those positions tends to be quite difficult. So here's as I was saying. So if you see this 25, 34, 55, 25. For year 25, so Cal 25, we're seeing prices of 66 euros. And as you can well see, so the rest of the year, so 26 until 34, the market is pretty flat. So we used to have a very steep backwardation. So we would have prices for the first couple of years at approximately like 100 euros. This was until October, November last year. And then we would have at the back end of the curve prices at 30, 35. So then we would see something which is really steep. And basically what we offer with a PPA is that you have to try and put something right in the middle. So the first few years you are saving money because you're probably buying something at 40, 45, 55 when the prompt years, when the 25 and 26 are quoting at around 100 euros. And so that allows you to have savings of quite a lot of money for the first couple of years, and then maybe on the last back end of the curve where we're seeing prices at 35, and you were buying at 40, 45 or whatever. We were seeing the prices at the back end of the curve, so the last 5 years were below the ones that we were buying from. But at the end, it's a sum zero play. So so basically, what we have to try and focus on here is that PPAs avoid risks. So both on the upstream side for the developers is okay, securing 55 euro or 56 or 52 or 50 euro per meg for a 10-year basis. It allows them for 75%, as I was saying at the beginning, it allows them to guarantee the cash that they're going to be receiving from an investment grade off-taker like Engie might be. And then on the other side, we have the downstream clients. So downstream clients, which would act similar to what we would be doing, is that they want to be hedging this. So for many reasons. One is knowing the cost of energy for the rest of for the next 10 years and X% of their energy consumption. Managing these risks is key. It's absolutely key, and you have to have sort of like let me call it this way. So you have to have how can I call it? Basically, is being loyal to and being firm with your decision. So you made this decision. It was good this moment. And maybe you'd be buying, as I was saying at the beginning as well. So maybe you'd be buying at a cheaper price tomorrow or more expensive price, but it's good for you. And it's good to your budget. So forget about everything else. So this number is good for you. Work with that number and try to achieve that number. That is going to be good for your budget and for some of the costs that you have, which are variable, converting those into a fixed cost, at least for a percentage of them. So as I was saying, we've seen a lot of negative prices in the past few weeks. And from experience, we saw that we were talking to a lot of developers and saying, hey, what do you guys think now? And I would have different sort of opinions and saying, I've seen this. So people who've been in the market for 15, 20, 25 years now, I've seen this before. I'm not worrying. This is going to be going up again, and I'm not worrying about this. I do not want to sell anything else. I think the market will be going up. Or then you have the other ones who are absolutely flabbergasted with the prices negative, and they're like, I need to be hedging this now. I cannot go through this risk. My investors are not happy with this. We have to hedge these risks. So that's why PPAs right now are so key. We're focusing on the second, of course, on the second side type of investors and developers. And we are seeing a lot of interest coming up again. What is a problem? And we're going to the next slide. Is that the market factor in Spain for PV and wind, especially on the PV side, has fallen dramatically. So market factor basically is that what is a percentage versus this baseload price that we were seeing here, 55.25, that we can find on especially in PV. So PV, you have here the solar market factor for Spain. This is internal from our analytics team. We see that for March, April, and May, market factor was below 50%. So 50%. So basically, is that if the price was 55 or 50 euros, we'd be seeing PV prices at 25 euros. So 25 years, you have to go to a developer and say, hey, this is what is happening. This is what we're seeing. This is what we're seeing for the future. Whilst we are still installing, I think we have from year on year in March 24 from March 23, I think we installed 5 gigs of more PV capacity in Spain, which is what we need to be doing. But the problem is that it's impacting prices dramatically, and we're going to be seeing this for at least the next couple of years. We're going to be seeing market factors of PV dropping dramatically. So we're going to see prices going on that, maybe not the 50 or below 50% range, but probably so we see prices around 70. So it depends on where that PV is installed, degradation it might have, but we're seeing around 60 to 70%, 70, 75% market factors for PV for the coming decade. And on wind, as you can see here, so wind, we've had something very similar. So wind, we've had historic wind production as well as hydro production in the last couple of months. So also one of the reasons that we've been seeing negative prices. And March was exceptional, and we'd be seeing it below that 60, so 70, 60 something percent market factor. So again, that means if prices are around 50, so we'd be seeing around something around 30, 30, 35, 30, 30, 32%, sorry, on versus base load. But it's kicking up again, and we'll probably be seeing it around that 5-year range or that 8-year range here that we have, sorry, from 2015 to 2023, and that's where it should be moving around. So we're talking about approximately around 90, low 90s, versus the average that we have at solar, which was probably around high 80s, as you can see on our graph here. So there's different ways of how to structure projects. So if we go to a developer developing PV now, they are struggling. So they are massively struggling into offloading their PV volumes, because so this is open to absolutely everyone. So corporates, off takers, midstreamers, they know where the market is. So one of the good things I think the Ukraine crisis and the Ukraine war has given us is that buyers, especially corporates, they're more aware of what's happening in the market. They have a full good knowledge of where market factors are. And so if you're seeing this and you're seeing negative prices and someone comes up to you and offers you a PV project, you're going to be worried because you don't want to be overpaying. Again, we're talking again back on the risk versus speculation. You're not speculating, but you're seeing what the market is doing. And you don't want to be the one trapped at buying a PV project at 45, 50 euros just because you have to greenify your energy buying. And you're seeing this, but you have to manage that risk as well because you want to be buying energy from a renewable developer, and managing that and taking those assumptions is difficult. So we're working around this. There's a lot of evangelization, so teaching everyone of what might be happening, where the market is going, and what are the different risks that we're seeing. So going to the risk part of the presentation. We see different risks, and here we have all the risks, but I'll start with so with the credit risk. I was saying that we have to put guarantees on these trades. So these guarantees, um, they can go from approximately something like 100,000 euro per meg installed, and these guarantees have to be posted before the project is finished. Then those guarantees are going to be maintained when the project is finished, and those guarantees will be reduced once we see the production of the project is working well. And what happens if it doesn't? What happens if it underproduces? What happens with so many different cases? So we have force majeure, we have a gazillion sort of risks as well, and then we go down to regulatory risk. So what happens with changes in taxes? So we have a 7% tax impact in generation. What happens if this suddenly comes away? So market prices will go up or down 7%. How does this impact us? What are we going to have auctions coming into the market? What prices? So I think the Spanish market, and Julio, I'm sure will tell us really well about this, but we've had something like, I don't know, I think it's 40 different regulatory changes in the past 20 years. So it's literally one every 6 months. And so we were discussing about market changing. So instead of having the market system that we have right now, going to a different market system. Also, we also have to look into other risks, like, for example, time spreads. So, for example, imagine that we go to a developer who's actually developing a project, and that project is not going to come into grid until the first quarter of 2026. But then we have an off-taker, a corporate client, who wants to buy the energy today. How do we manage that? How are we able to buy energy from Q1 26 from a developer and then sell it to someone, but they want it now? And then we have to go to the market, and then we have to find liquidity for the short term. And there's basically no liquidity. So liquidity has drowned out massively since the Ukraine crisis again. So historically in Spain for a CAL, so a CAL plus one is the most liquid contract apart from month and quarters, but it's one of those reference that the market really looks into. We were able to do 20, 30 megs on a daily basis, maybe a bit less, maybe 15, 10 megs, whilst in Germany you were able to do 100 megs. So Germany is by far the most liquid market in Europe. And now we see that you struggle to do 1 meg every day. So you suddenly trying to buy 5 megs for a different project. It's a PV that you're buying from a developer and then you're selling it to a different counterparty. You're not able to buy that PV shape, but you have to deal with a base load, and that's where we go into the rest of the risks, which are quite a few, which is that profile risk. So profile risk is that we are selling base load whilst we are buying peak. So imagine a solar shape goes from 8 in the morning to 8 in the afternoon, and then produces more, of course, in July and August than it would be producing in January or February, because of solar hours, of course. And then our client is demanding something which is base load, whilst we are buying something which is pay as produce or a solar profile. So how do we match those two? It's extremely complicated. And what we've been doing, and again, evangelizing in some way, is trying to teach our clients that base load is a reference. So for the market, we need to have that reference in the market, but there's no base load out there anymore. There's basically everyone who wants to buy 24/7, the intermittency that we have from PV, wind, hydro, the only ones that we can find non-intermittency risk is from CCGTs and gas fueled CCGTs, but we don't want to be using them. And right now, with the current market scheme and the market prices, these CCGTs are not working. We have to find some sort of capacity mechanism for these CCGTs to be working, or the nukes as well. And there's just different policies that I'm sure Daniel will talk about later. That the policies from one country to another differ completely. There's so much change. Then, as I was saying, the price risk, which we've already talked about, daylight hedging risk. So maybe you want to be trading at one certain moment in time, and have we seen? So on a 24-hour basis, we might see prices going from 0 to 100. So 0 in the central hours of the day with solar, trying to match and trying to be part of the market, whilst the peak demand in Spain is usually at 8, 10 in the evening, where everyone's back at home. Then the possibility of hedging swing risk. So how do we profit, or how do we try not to lose a lot of money whilst hedging, as I was saying, that base load versus that peak load, and managing those risks? The balancing risk, of course, is part of that intermittency. So supply, are we being curtailed? Is our off-taker being curtailed? And that energy that we were expecting is no longer going to be coming into grid. Credit risk that we've already spoken about. And basically, and as I was saying, there's a million type of risks. And what we need to do is manage these risks. And we do. And we offer the possibility of managing these risks. So do so, manage the risk, because volatility is going to be there. It's a two-phase. It's going to come up, it's going to come down. We never know where it's going to be leading, but we can manage those risks with PPAs, and we can also manage those risks on a short-term basis. So that's on my side. I'll leave the floor to Julio, and I'll let him share his screen.
Okay, thanks, Rodolfo. Thanks, first of all, thanks to Alea. It's a pleasure to join this webinar. We have only 3 minutes left. Quickly, regarding the regulatory issues, we want to highlight the 3 most important points. Where one is the ambition of the current Spanish Energy Minister, Teresa Rivera, to apply to the European Commission. And for this reason, we expect that the MITECO not to take any conflicted decision until the position of the minister will be clear. Second one is that after the royal decrease in recent years, motivated by the increase in market price due to the Ukraine war, this year we don't expect major regulatory decision. And also with the current political situation, and Daniel explained later, it's not easy for the government to agree with regulatory changes due to the lack of support in the parliament. The latest regulatory decision has been the update of the calculation methodology of the remuneration for renewables facilities for the period 2025-2027, and also the review of the remuneration for distribution network. And we are waiting. An important issue is that we are waiting for the development of the capacity remuneration mechanism that we have a draft in 2021, and we are waiting that the MITECO agree with DGCOM the structure of this capacity remuneration. And finally, there are many open topics as access and connection regulation to allow the penetration of batteries, big demand as data center or electrolyzer and integration, the developer they said the CRM's market, and legal challenges against renewables installation in some regions in Spain. We have a new tax in Aragon, we have a high court decision in Galicia, etc. And in 1 minute, that's all. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Julio. So basically,
Daniel, you are on mute. Daniel, you are on mute. We cannot hear you. Danny, can you hear us? You are on mute.
Danny, we can't hear you. I think Danny's not hearing us.
Yeah.
He's going on.
the environment is
there we go.
more clear, or a bit, let's say, there are no major earthquakes upcoming this year, past during this first half of the year, expected in the second half of the year, due to the fact that we have Teresa Rivera, the process to leave to Brussels. So let's see how things evolve. Obviously, and this is very relevant for the last part that Julio has mentioned, our view in Engie is that there are many regulatory priorities that you can see here, that they are on the agenda, and the energy transition cannot wait for that, let's say, political movement. But it is true that today what we are having in Spain is we are conditional on the political arena to move forward in the regulatory arena, and therefore, if regulatory accelerates a bit more, probably the PPA market should become more dynamic. What's the political situation? Well, we live in an uncertain world with more than 70 countries voting. Even Europe has voted, as mostly of you know, 3 or 4 days ago. Spain has a majority much bigger than the European one in terms of having bipartisan, very strong. This socialist plus populars in Spain ranks up to 65%, and the extremes, even if there are 6-7 seats per wing, well, let's say they have limited effect or control. So, in a nutshell, what has happened political-wise in Spain? We can say that this has been a void and null combat between the right and the left in order to have changes in the political arena, and therefore accelerating something in terms of a potential change of government in Spain and a potential new perspective for energy policies, etc. Partido Popular, conservative right, has won the election, but without the majority expected. The socialists, they have lost the election, but we call it in Spain a sweet defeat, in the sense that they show strong resilience, and it is the best behavior of socialist, of a traditional social democratic party in Europe. Therefore, Mr. Pedro Sánchez will be reinforced in order to negotiate in Brussels this month, and at the July, the EU top jobs, commissioners, etc., etc. So that's the scenario for the European perspective. No major changes at national level. The key point at national level, Julio has anticipated a bit, is what's going to happen in Catalonia. Catalonia should appoint a new government this summer. The process starts formally June 25th, and it will last 2 months. Let's see, because if there is a government in Catalonia, there will be stable support for the government in Madrid, and very likely the legislative panorama will becomes more stable, and therefore regulatory developments should come late 2025, late 2024, early 2025. On the contrary, if there is no government in Catalonia, probably we will have in autumn elections in Catalonia, and a very unstable atmosphere in the parliament in Madrid, probably provoking elections at the end of the year. Honestly, I don't commit ourselves to put here percentages, as you may see, because maybe 5 days ago, this was 80% towards stability in Catalonia, 20% at repetition. But after some news these days, the scenario is much more uncertain. What it is clear is that in terms of approving of new bills, etc., in the national parliament, nothing can be expected until September the earliest, because the majorities in the parliament are not clear. Beyond this, we are opening a period in Europe, a legislative period 2025-2029, in which the mantras, big political headlines in the previous legislative period, prosperity, people, planet through energy, clean energy, affordable, prosperity thanks to energy to all European citizens. It is a big challenge. Honestly, let's hope not, in terms of not only for the business, not only for Engie, it is because there is no planet B. It is because Europe is at the avant-garde, at the leading the new industrial revolution of this time, and therefore, let's say, relaxing the priority should mean less prosperity for the people, for the planet, for Europe as the best region to live in the world. Let's see how the Commission comes. There will be a strong sign whether the new Commission has a VP for energy, very likely Teresa Rivera or not. With all this perspective, all in all, we remain optimistic. Engie Spain, we are the 6th generator agent. We have more than 18 employees. We have 2 GW of CCGTs. We have 1.8 GW of renewables. We are very recognized experts in trading and PPAs, as you may have seen perfectly with Rodolfo's speech. And we have the ambition to grow in Spain because we consider this is the place to be in Europe due to the natural resources, knowledge, even the political umbrella, even with, let's say, uncertainties. We do consider this is a great geography to stay. Our plan is to go from 1.8 giga renewable to 3 in 2026 to consolidate ourselves as 6th agent, and if EDP lags a bit behind, go up to 5th. We want to remain incumbents as district heating and cooling services providers, networks, and also helping industry to decarbonize. We want also to hybridize some of our CCGTs with solar, with batteries, and also profit on our growth in assets to keep on growing in flows and in trading activity, and also test the waters a bit with green molecules and with biomethane. So basically, that's it on our side. Thank you very much, Antonio, Alejandro. Thank you very much, Alea. Warren Buffett used to say that without passion, there is no energy. Without energy, there is nothing. I hope you have felt at least our very good energy, our very positive energy, and we're very happy to be here. I'm happy to take any question, whatever you consider. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rodolfo, Julio, and Danny, for that great presentation. And we hope to share with you another session next year. But unfortunately, we have run out of time, so we will answer the questions directly by email. And as Uriel mentioned, I invite you to register to our next webinar in July. And thank you again, Uriel, Rodolfo, Julio, and Daniel, for your presentations, and the audience for joining. Have a nice day.
Goodbye. Thank you.